Hello and welcome to another exam question walkthrough for the amount of substance topic. Do feel free to download the questions, their link is in the description, have a go at them and then watch this video back and see how you got on. Here we're being asked a question about a titration. Somebody's trying to find out the concentration of sulfuric acid in a sample of battery acid. So they're transferring 10 cm cubed of the battery acid to a volumetric flask. They're then adding distilled water to make that volume up to 250 cm cubed. Then they're taking a sample of that diluted acid and putting it into a conical flask using a pipette. They're adding some methyl orange indicator to the conical flask and then titrating the acid with sodium hydroxide. It's repeated 5 times. The results obtained were not concordant. The question is about the colour change at the end point of the titration, so that's when you stop. Well, we're told that methyl orange is red in acid, and that's in our conical flask, the battery acid. We add sodium hydroxide to it to neutralise that acid, and then we stop. It's yellow in alkali, but if you've got equal amounts of acid and alkali, it will be orange. So the colour change is red to orange, so that is B. Here we're being asked a question about a titration, and 25 cm cubed of sodium hydroxide has been added to a beaker using a pipette. It was then titrated with an aqueous solution of ethanoic acid. It was found that the concentration of ethanoic acid calculated was lower than the actual value. And we've been asked what could explain the difference. A says rinsing the pipette with distilled water before filling with sodium hydroxide. That would have the effect of diluting the sodium hydroxide that we put into the conical flask, and so then we wouldn't actually need to add as much ethanoic acid from the burette. So the ethanoic acid would seem to be more concentrated than it really was. So that's the wrong answer. B, rinsing the burette with distilled water before filling with ethanoic acid. Well, that would mean that the ethanoic acid would be diluted in the process, and so we would add more of it than we should really need to if it was its actual concentration. And so this would make us think that the concentration was lower than it really was, and so B is the correct answer. C and D both involve rinsing the beaker with distilled water either before the experiment or during the experiment. They wouldn't have any effect because water is not an acid or a base, and it doesn't affect the amounts of the other chemicals that we put into the beaker. This question is about the ideal gas equation, and we've been told that there is a 2.18 gram mass of oxygen gas. Oxygen's diatomic, so it will be O2. And it's got a volume of 1,870 cm cubed and a pressure of 101 kilopascals. And we've been asked what the temperature of this gas is. So we've been also told that the gas constant is 8.31 joules per Kelvin per mole, which is a signpost that we need to use the ideal gas equation to do this. Ideal gas equation, PV equals nRT, and then T, the temperature, is PV divided by nR. We've got the pressure, but it's in kilopascals, so that needs to be 101,000 pascals. Volume needs to be turned into meters cubed, and we divide our cm cubed by 1,000,000, and we get 1.87 times 10 to the minus 3 meters cubed. And then we have the ideal gas constant, but we don't have the moles. So we work out moles by doing mass over mR. So 2.18 grams divided by 32 gives us 0.06 moles of oxygen gas. When we crunch all those numbers in, we get a temperature of 333.6 Kelvin. So that means that B is the correct answer. This question is asking us what the burette reading is for this transparent liquid. Now, burettes are funny because they're numbered in a sort of way that looks upside down. And first of all, we need to note that the liquid's layer is between 24 and 25. So that means we can rule out C and D because that would actually have the liquid much lower down round about here. And then we next need to look for the meniscus of the liquid. So we're looking at the bottom of the curve, and then we're counting down from 24, 24.1, 0.2, 0.3. So it's 24.3. 24.1 is a decoy if you forget to use the bottom of the meniscus. This question is about making up a volumetric solution, and the volumetric flask is used to prepare 250 cm cubed of solution. To do this, we need to weigh out a certain mass of solute using a plastic weighing container. We're told that the weighing container with the solute had a mass of 10.13 grams, and after the solute had been added to the volumetric flask, it was 4.48. And each reading from the balance has an uncertainty of 0.005 grams. And so the first thing that we need to do is work out what mass of solute we've added from that weighing container. And that gives us 5.65 grams when we look at the difference between those two masses. And then to calculate the percentage uncertainty, we need to take the absolute uncertainty, multiply it by the number of times we take a reading, and then divide it by our measurement and multiply it by 100. And so because we needed to take two readings of mass, one before and one when it was emptied, we need to double that 0.005 grams. And that then gives us an uncertainty to 2 decimal points of 0.18%. The most common wrong answer would be A, and that's there to trip you up in case you forget to notice that two readings have been made, so we have to double that absolute uncertainty value. Here we're being asked a percentage yield question about ester hydrolysis to make a carboxylic acid and an alcohol. We've been asked what the percentage yield of the carboxylic acid is when 0.50 grams of this carboxylic acid is obtained, so that is our actual yield, and it's obtained from 1 gram of the ester. So first of all, our ultimate journey is percentage yield is actual yield divided by theoretical yield times 100. So we're doing 0.50 times 100 divided by whatever the theoretical yield is. To work out the theoretical yield, I would suggest that you structure it like this. You've got your ester and your acid. We know we've got 1 gram of the ester, MR is 150, so in terms of moles, that's 6.67 times 10 to the minus 3. It's a 1-to-1 ratio from the equation, so the moles of carboxylic acid that we should produce will be the same number. The MR of the carboxylic acid is 100, so the mass is MR times by moles, and we would expect to make 0.67 grams of our carboxylic acid. So this is our theoretical yield. When you plug that into the percentage yield calculation, you get a 75% yield to whole numbers, and that gives us an answer of D. This question is about solutions. We've been told that we've got a saturated solution containing magnesium hydroxide, and we've been given its mass, and we're told that it is a total volume of 100 cm cubed. And in this solution, magnesium hydroxide is fully dissociated into ions. And we've been asked what the concentration is of the magnesium 2+ ions in solution. So magnesium hydroxide has got the formula that we've been shown here. So we need to work out its MR, and that gets us 58.3. And from that, we've got our mass and we've got MR, and we can divide mass over MR, and we get a moles value of magnesium hydroxide of 2.01 times 10 to the minus 5 moles. Now, looking at the formula, you can see that there is 1 magnesium in magnesium hydroxide, so the moles of magnesium 2+ will be the same. And then this is moles in 100 cm cubed. Concentrations are in moles per decimeter cubed, so we need to divide that volume by 1,000 and we get 0.1 decimeters cubed. Now on this occasion we can just see that that is a tenth of a decimeter cubed, so that means that the concentration will be 10 times the number of moles, and so that means that the answer was D. If the calculation, if the volume was a little bit more complicated, we might have to do moles is conc times vol in decimeters cubed, so concentration is moles over volume, so 0.1 would go on the bottom and moles would go on the top, and we'd of course get to the same answer, and that would help you if the calculation was a little bit more tricky. Here we're being presented with some concentrations and volumes of hydrochloric acid, and we've been asked what volume of 0.2 moles per decimeter cubed of barium hydroxide would precisely neutralise that hydrochloric acid. Now, when an acid reacts, it's the H+ ions from the acid that reacts with the OH- from the alkali. You can see that HCl has just got 1 hydrogen, whereas barium hydroxide has got 2 hydroxides. So that means that we will need 2 HCl's to provide us with those 2 H+ ions that we need to react with the barium hydroxide. And this tells us that the HCl to barium hydroxide ratio is going to be 2 to 1. And then we know the concentration and we know the volume of HCl, so we can work out the moles by doing moles is concentration times by volume in dm cubed, and that gets us 3 times 10 to the minus 3 moles. We now know from the ratio that the moles of barium hydroxide will be half as much, 1.5 times 10 to the minus 3, and so we can work out volume by doing moles divided by concentration is equal to volume. When we do that, we get 7.5 times 10 to the minus 3 dm cubed, but all of our options are in cm cubed, and so we need to multiply that value by 1000 to turn dm cubed into cm cubed, and we get 7.5, and so D is our correct answer. Here we're being asked to calculate the empirical formula of an explosive, and they've given us a mixture of masses in grams and percentages, and they haven't actually even given us all the information, so this is going to take a while to do it the normal way. However, what you could look at here is you could look at the carbon to hydrogen ratio, because they have both been given as percentages, and in every single one of our options the carbon to hydrogen ratio is different. So if you take your 33.8 for the carbon, divide it by its relative atomic mass, which is 12, you get 2.81. If you take the hydrogen, 1.41, and divide it by 1, you of course stay at 1.41. So the carbon to hydrogen ratio is 2 to 1. And that means there's 2 carbons and to every 1 hydrogen, which means that C has to be the correct answer. And we didn't even need to calculate the other elements, but you would get to C in the same way as I'm showing here. This question is asking us to use the Avogadro constant to work out the number of atoms in 0.01 moles of ammonia. Now, the particles per mole is what Avogadro's constant actually means, and so the first thing we need to do is multiply those two numbers together, and that will tell us how many molecules we've got, and that is going to be 6.022 times 10 to the 21. Now, each molecule of ammonia has got 4 atoms in it, and so the total number of atoms will be 4 times bigger than the total number of molecules, which gives us an answer of 2.409 times 10 to the 22, or 2.41 times 10 to the 22, to 3 significant figures, which means that D is the correct answer. Okay, that's the end of these questions. I hope it was useful. I'll see you again soon.